How are you, my dear unification? I really hope that you're fine in God's name. At this moment, I have a most importantly urgent message from heaven that I must convey to you as soon as possible. Before I start, I would like to set straight some conditions and recommendations. 1. This is a long speech of at least 8 hours to conclude. Therefore, I want to set it up more or less like if you were going to a workshop. 2. This video is geared mostly towards unificationists or any person who considers Father Moon as the second coming of the Christ. Nonetheless, the general public is invited to attend as long as they do it with an open mind. 3. My name is Juan Pablo Nazar and I was born in Colombia. I tell you this because English is not my native tongue. It is a second language for me and most likely I will make some mispronunciations and grammatical mistakes. So please bear with me. I hope to get better at this so future editions will come out much better. However, I'm also open to any correction you want to make, so please feel free to do it. 4. If you have doubts regarding the content of this message, please refer to True Father's works on this topic. Also, the Holy Bible is a good book of reference as well. True Father, in the last days, the Bible says, do not believe just anybody, do not believe me, and do not believe your church elders, do not believe your ministers, and do not believe famous evangelists. Heaven is so near, and you can be lifted up by the Spirit so high, that you can speak with God and receive the answer directly from Him, if you are earnest enough. And you can find this quote in the book of God's Will on the World. And I read again the main part. Heaven is so near, and you can be lifted up by the Spirit so high, that you can speak with God and receive the answer directly from Him, if you are earnest enough. Quote again from the same book. True Father, we are living in such an extraordinary time, at the birth of a new age. Heaven is quite near, and if you earnestly call upon God, He will answer you. You must urgently ask Him, how can I know if Reverend Moon is telling the truth? Do not let me or anyone else answer that question for you. Let God answer you directly. You can read that in the same book, God's Will on the World. And I read again the main part. Do not let me or anyone else answer that question for you. Let God answer you directly. It's very simple. Only ask God in prayer about it, and that's it. It works. 5. If you can trust the content of this message, please pray to God for guidance and understanding. Don't cast judgment in a hurry, but trust God that will lead to all truth. From the same book. True Father, even if you cannot accept these things as the truth now, you must at least suspend judgment. One day we will all know the truth. Eventually we are all going to die. Every one of us will end up in the spiritual world, where truth is like the sunlight. No one can escape it there. On that day, we shall all see the whole truth. In the same book, God's Will on the World. And I read again the main part. Even if you cannot accept these things as the truth now, you must at least suspend judgment. And the Bible, in the book of Acts, chapter 5, verses 34 to 39, in James Version, says this. Then stood there up one in the council, a Pharisee named Gamaliel, a doctor of the law, having reputation among all the people, and commanded to put the apostles forth a little space, and said unto them, Ye men of Israel, take heed to yourselves what ye intend to do as touching these men. For before these days rose up Theudas, boasting himself to be somebody, to whom a number of men, about 400, joined themselves, who was slain, and all as many as obeyed him were scattered and brought to naught. After these men rose up Judas of Galilee in the days of the taxing, and drew away much people after him. He also perished, and all, even as many as obeyed him, were dispersed. And now I said unto you, refrain from these men, and let them alone. For if this counsel or this work be of man, it will come to naught. But if it be of God, ye cannot overthrow it, lest haply ye be found even to fight against God. And I read again the main part. And now I said unto you, refrain from these men, and let them alone. For if this counsel or this work be of man, it will come to naught. But if it be of God, ye cannot overthrow it, lest haply ye be found even to fight against God. 6. But if you think the full content of this message to be true, then praise God and safeguard it in your heart. Don't rush to tell others about it, but meditate on it, keep it in your heart. True Father, did I make myself understood? Don't reveal all you have in an instant. In the communist world, their strategies kept to themselves. But in the democratic world, they are ready to reveal what they have as their tactics. The evil force of communism will win over the democratic world in that because they keep their secrets to themselves. And you can find this speech in the Attitude of the Evangelist. This quote. And I read again the main part. Did I make myself understood? Don't reveal all you have in an instant. To fight again from the same speech. If you are told to do a certain thing in secret, and if you reveal that, expose that in public, and publicize that, you are not qualified for that. You must keep silent when you are told about some secret among three persons in the formation of a triangle. Then how to be connected with God and Master will be the question while you are in front line without them around. The attitude of the evangelist. The same speech. And I read again the main part. You must keep silent when you are told about some secret among three persons in the formation of a triangle. The main point in this reading concerning the attitude of an evangelist is that you must keep silent when you are told about a secret or share a secret among three persons in a trinity, like a triangle that keeps its angles close pointing to a common center. The most important point will come clear to you when you think yourself as the third person in the triangle that your Father is demonstrating. If you can figure it out, who are the other two persons, you will come to realize that they are like two undercover cops trying to expose the map. Of course, you are not going to reveal their identities, because if you do, they can be killed. So please, be careful and cautious about it. Please. 7. At the conclusion of this workshop, you can ask me questions and give your opinions as long as you maintain the conditions stipulated at the beginning of this program. My name is Juan Pablo Nazar, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you. The title of my whole presentation is The Final Showdown Between Satan and God. This message, or revelation, is divided into three parts. The first part is the most important since it displays what has been God's plan to establish His kingdom and also Satan's plan to establish his kingdom, although Satan has already changed his plan. The two plans begin to develop since 1905 and will end in the year 2040. Obviously, it depends on our responsibility. If we fulfill it, God has a great prize for us, the so-long kingdom of heaven. But if we don't fulfill our responsibility, it will be catastrophic. It is, as the Bible mentions, the great and the dreadful day of the Lord. Great if we fulfill it, or dreadful if we fail. From 1905 to 2040, there are two periods of 120 years, with each period divided into three courses of 40 years. First period goes from 1905 to 2025 to restore the Old Testament age. The second one goes from 1920 to 2040 to restore the New Testament age. The period of 120 years to restore the Old Testament. During this period, God's plan starts with the Pyongyang revival of 1907, and Satan's plan starts with the Russian Revolution of 1905. That's interesting. Satan always tries to start before God by taking over a big country. God instead starts afterward in a much smaller country, like Egypt versus Israel. God and Satan always work in opposite ends. 40 years after the Russian Revolution, in 1945, True Father was rejected by Christians. Satan had already established communist parties in some countries, and Kim Il-sung became the chairman of the North Korean Communist Party. That was the beginning of the Cold War. True Father said, "Since Christian culture is Pharaoh opposed me, 40,000 years of history since Jacob's family had to be indemnified within 400 years. As I couldn't live for 400 years, I had to accomplish this indemnity in 40 years." You can find this in the Family Magazine in the January 1985 issue, page 10. And then 40 years after, in 1985, was the downfall of communism. But pay attention for what I'm going to say. We defeat communism only ideologically, but not culturally. And Satan started to change his plan. True Father, for that reason I embarked on a sojourn in the wilderness, starting in 1945. This year, 1985, is my 40th year of life in the wilderness. Father said that in April 7, 1985, excerpts World Mission Center, New York, translator Dr. Bohi Park. Satan's formal plan was divine principle. Since Christ comes with the ideals of the kingdom of heaven on earth, interdependence, mutual prosperity and universally shared values, the satanic side tries to realize these ideals in advance by building an imitation of the kingdom of heaven on earth, led by the satanic counterpart to Christ at the second advent. But his new plan is, True Father, as Satan realized the fact that he would not be able to overcome me, he wants to force the human race to die along with him, to literally send our entire humanity into the spiritual world. You can find that quote in the Continental Tourism News 2005. It's a magazine. And I will read again. True Father, as Satan realized the fact that he would not be able to overcome me, he wants to force the human race to die along with him, to literally send our entire humanity into the spiritual world. So if he kills us all, we won't be able to grow spiritually and we will remain in hell forever. And finally, the last 40 years course in the wilderness. True Father, now we are going through a 40-year course in the wilderness, which will end in 2 years. That Father said that in the speech, benediction for the blessing of Hunjanim and Huxanim, February 20, 1984. Hunjanim, as we know, he was True Parent's second son who died in a car accident. True Father delivered a message titled Benediction in 1984 concerning his son's blessing with Huxanim. When we add 40 years to 1984, we end up in 2024. The last 40 years of this 120 years period ends between 2024 and 2025. There is a great probability that there will be a very important blessing ceremony in the year 2025. Two fathers say will end in 2 years. Tux equals tuxedo, or tux as in tuxedo. Hyok Am Yurok, or Korean Book of Prophecies. In the year Shinju 1992 or 1993, war will break out in the Middle East. In the year Sulhe 1994 to 1995 or 1995, many will lose their lives. In the year Da Chu 1996 or 1997, confusion will dominate the world and it becomes difficult to predict the future. In the year Inmyo 1998 to 1999, the future can be predicted. In the year Jinsa from 2000 to 2001, the Holy Man will appear. In the year Omi 2002 to 2003, every house will be full of joy. Note, the above times predictions can be moved forward 24 years, so it means it goes from 2016 to 2027. And you can find this quote in the Complete Testament Age and the Ideal Kingdom book. Book 6, Book 6, Chapter 2, Interpreter Samuku. I believe Samuku was a father's disciple. I believe it. I think so. From same book, somewhere in the world you will find that man. He is the holy man. Look at the world justly. He will come between 2000 or 2001 or 2024, 2025, either one, and unify the world. Those who are blinded by the desire for gold cannot escape. Look at the secret message sent to South Korea. Everything is hidden in that secret message. Obviously, that secret message is the divine principle and Father's words. The Completed Testament Nation, the Ideal Kingdom, Book 6, Chapter 2, Interpreter Samuku. And the Old Testament will finish here. So, now the period of 120 years to restore the New Testament. God's plan started in 1919 with the March 1st movement, also known as the Samuel movement. And the birth of True Father was 1920. Satan's plan started in 1917 with the Bolshevik revolution in Russia, continue in 1918 with the German Communist Revolution, and in 1920 the emergence of the Russianism movement. This movement is very important. I'm going to talk about it later. 40 years after True Father's birth, in 1960, the marriage supper of the Lamb occurred with the Holy Blessed marriage ceremony of two parents. On the other hand, Satan, through communism, is taking over the other countries. In the year 2000, 40 years after True Parents' blessing, True Father, together with his family and church members, finished this 40-year course in the wilderness. True Father, we could have realized the era of perfection 50 years ago, but we had to pass through a sorrowful 40-year century on a sorrowful family in the wilderness. We greet the 40th year as we end the year 2000, which was the year that True Father turned 80. Father said that in True God's Day, midnight prayer and speech, January 1st, 2001. To complete the 120-year period representing the New Testament age, the last 40-year course is needed again. True Father, blessed family and I could not unite, and only I have overcome everything. Therefore, you cannot find out any way to go back to God if you don't connect with the second generation. That's why the second 40-year course is needed again. Father said that in the Japanese monthly magazine, Family. You can find it with the title Ideal of Creation and the Unity of the Completed Testament Era, December 1996, issue, page 7. If Father stated in 1996, that's because this course starts in the year 2000, and the New Testament will finish here. Before reaching the year 2025, in this workshop Last Days, I'm going to talk to you about recent events since President Trump took office. I will explain to you why, from a providence standpoint of view, he plays an important role in the last days. That is no coincidence. I will explain what is his providential relationship with former President Ronald Reagan and the Unificationists, and why his last name is Prophetic. It is not a coincidence that these English translations mention the word Trump. For example, in the Bible, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 52, King James Version, and in True Father's speech from April 7, 1985, excerpt, World Mission Center, New York, translator, Dr. Bohi Park, you will find the Trump word many times. I'm going to talk to you about the providence standpoint of view of the coronavirus, why it's a biological weapon created by the Chinese Communist Party and the deep state. And if we pay close attention to historical accounts, we can clearly see that every 100 years a pandemic occurs, and at the same time a major significant event occurs in God's providence. Now the question is, how will the world be after we finish with these two periods of 120 years? Baba Vanga, and the recent Bulgarian prophet. After the year 2000, there will be no catastrophe, no flood. 1,000 years of peace and prosperity are waiting for us. Ordinary people will travel to other worlds at 10 times the speed of light as they travel by path. This will happen not earlier than 2050. True Father, from this year, start to create mind and body unity. Next 40 years, surely God's will be done. January 1st, 1999. But it depends on our responsibility, like always. True Father, I'm warning you, Unification Church, if you fail, 600 million will be destroyed in a worse way than 6 million lost. Father said that in June 1st, 2003, Showdown National Hotel, Washington, D.C. The second part of the message is about how we as believers, Unificationists, Christians, Jews, and other believers must prepare this world before the coming of heaven. The four Israels must combine to fulfill our collective responsibility. For Israel. The third part is the method we must apply to have the world prepared before the coming of heaven. Surely you will be wondering if True Father already declared the era of the completed testament, the settlement age, or the era of Chonil Guk. What do I mean with the coming of heaven? Well, this era has to be established first in symbol, then in image, and finally in substance. In symbol, it was already established. In image, it's been established, but in substance is the one that is missing. Thank you very much. God bless you, and I wait for you at the next lecture. Aju. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.